Stephen Colbert taking shots at the FCC and his network over the equal time rule. Take a listen to what the Late Show host said after network lawyers allegedly informed him last minute that he couldn't air an interview with Texas Senate candidate James Tallarico.
You know who is not one of my guests tonight? That's Texas State Representative James Tallarico. He was supposed to be here, but we were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers, who called us directly, that we could not have him on the broadcast. This doesn't just affect interviews. The rules forbid any candidate appearance, including by voice or picture. That's not him. That's a stock photo we found when we Googled "not James Tallarico."
Colbert wasn't done. He insisted that it was purely a network decision to pull the plug on the interview and gave his thoughts on it.
Carr said he was thinking about dropping the exception for talk shows because he said some of them were motivated by partisan purposes. He hasn't done away with it yet, but my network is unilaterally enforcing it as if he had. But I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, please, I want to assure you this decision is for purely financial reasons.
Colbert also had a specific message for Carr himself. Take a listen.
Sir, you're chairman of the FCC, so FCCU. Because I think you are motivated by partisan purposes yourself. Sir, you smelt it 'cause you dealt it. You are Dutch ovening America's airwaves. Let's just call this what it is. Donald Trump's administration wants to silence anyone who says anything bad about Trump on TV because all Trump does is watch TV.
This comes as the network continues to experience tension under its new leadership. Several journalists and even high-profile on-air talent have obviously left the network, and that list now includes another big name. 60 Minutes correspondent Anderson Cooper says he will not be renewing his contract with CBS, but he didn't identify the network's new direction as a reason. He instead said in a statement Monday, quote, "Being a correspondent at 60 Minutes has been one of the great honors of my career. I got to tell amazing stories and work with some of the best producers, editors, and camera crews in the business. For nearly 20 years, I've been able to balance my jobs at CNN and CBS, but I have little kids now, and I want to spend as much time with them as possible while they still want to spend time with me." So this is Anderson Cooper no longer being with 60 Minutes at CBS, which most people know him as the host of CNN.
Yeah.
So I initially saw, I'm like, oh, this is big news, but this is just him. He's been doing both things. He's just going to do CNN. And they're under different management structures for the time being, although obviously Warner Brothers is trying, they're going to try to merge with Paramount, the owners of CBS. So
and he can go back to his old job if he wants,
I guess.
because it's under one umbrella.
Look, I don't, so the equal time rule, this makes me uncomfortable. First of all, the rule should be enforced or it isn't. I don't like this vaguely. I might get rid of it. I might not. It might, like, if we're going to have rules, I don't really like the FCC, but if we're going to have these kinds of rules, they need to be very clear so the networks know who they can follow. And like, this shows this talk show, this shows a news show, this one they can't even show his photo. That seems very heavy-handed. Now, there's these aggressively censorial rules for the broadcast channels because of limited bandwidth. But it also, so this Tallarico interview did air. It just aired on YouTube and on social media, which is where most people are watching news anyway. So it increasingly seems very antiquated to me that there are these very precise news opinion distinctions, what you can say, equal time, very heavy-handed government-mandated rules for the platform that is falling and collapsing, that fewer and fewer people are going to watch, whereas YouTube is the wild, wild west, and that's a good thing. So anyway, I don't care for this at all, is a long way of saying that.
Well, I think what we're seeing is a pattern of the FCC saying something and companies reacting before there's any new, guidance administered that's actually on the books. And I think people are nervous about the new dynamic that Brendan Carr has created between people who run networks that need FCC approval to get things done, like these big mergers, and him kind of saying, well, I'm strong-arming without strong-arming through the lens of President Trump, right? And I feel like that is coming up more often where, well, why would you say that publicly unless you're going to implement it, actually? And Stephen Colbert is like, this is not an actual rule yet, but I just can't air the interview because my network is scared because they may want to get into a merger soon that's going to benefit them financially.
Because the FCC may say you're subject to the equal time rule, which means you would have to also have on, I guess, but I'm not even, see, this is why the rule being unclear is bad.
Right.
Does that mean he has to have on Jasmine Crockett because that's the competitor in the primary? Or is it they have to have on Ken Paxton and Cornyn, or whoever wins that conflict? Or do they wait till that's resolved and then they have to have him on? This is why I don't understand. Like, Tallarico is not yet a candidate running against the Republican because they haven't decided it yet. So the lack of clarity on that aspect of the rules, to me and to CBS, it seems utterly absurd.
And I think that when they bring people on a lot of these shows, The View, Late Show, what have you, you're finding the people that are most in the news to have newsworthy conversations. So Tallarico has recently beat out Jasmine Crockett in the polls, even though she saw a huge surge a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. And so it's worth talking about. What changed? What are Texas voters feeling? Is there a chance that a Democrat could win this type of election in Texas? We haven't seen that in modern history. So we want to really have these dialogues about, oh, what can change?
I mean, I'm guessing the Trump administration doesn't want Tallarico to be the candidate. I'm reading between the lines. They want Jasmine Crockett to be the candidate because they think will be more easily beaten. So they don't want positive interviews of James Tallarico where he'll be unchallenged and he'll look good.
And the FCC probably shouldn't be in that. I mean, definitely shouldn't be in that conversation
at
all. What President Trump wants.
Well, their mandate. Well, yes. I mean, their mandate is that this is a long-standing rule. I don't like this rule. I don't like the FCC. I would abolish the FCC and just auction the airwaves to the highest bidder is what I would do. We don't need any regulatory control of this whatsoever. This is also like having regulatory control over who gets to use the phonograph. Who cares? It's like
it's not that old. Yeah, that's so dramatic.
Phonograph. Nobody is watching this. He's going off the airwaves. Colbert is.
Yes.
Not because they're censoring him at the government, but because his show doesn't make any money because nobody cares about late night anymore.
My mom watches that show all the time.
Well, and that's very nice for her, but people are getting their news and information elsewhere. YouTube has won. I don't know how many more times I have to say that. So it doesn't matter, but because it doesn't matter, that also makes it seem very silly to be enforcing this.
And this is interesting about Anderson Cooper. We have to go, but he has a 3- and 4-year-old, so I totally get it from that perspective. Mm-hmm. That's really why he's leaving, but we can't forget to mention the whole Barry Weiss thing. That could also be the reason why he's leaving. Working at CNN and having Barry Weiss as your other boss might be a little bit much.
There's reporting behind the scenes about tensions there, but who knows? You let media people gossip anonymously about their workplaces. Trust me, they will complain and complain and complain and complain, and you can drum up any narrative you want.
New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made an appearance along with other top Democrats at the Munich Security Conference over the weekend.
The Congresswoman and potential presidential candidate for 2028 did an hour-long panel that was mainly focused on foreign policy. At one point, AOC was asked if she thought the U.S. should commit troops to help defend Taiwan if China were to invade the island, and she appeared to struggle in finding the right words for her response. Take a look.
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States, and I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation.
That moment was seized on by critics of AOC, who argued she should have a better response ready for such an important foreign policy issue. Tensions between Taiwan and China have ramped up in the past couple of years, with some in the U.S. military believing China could move on the island as soon as next year. Be disastrous. Conservative commentator Niall Gardner wrote on X, "I look forward to a clueless socialist AOC debating J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio in 2028. Her knowledge of foreign policy and national security issues is practically zero."
But others felt that the Congresswoman's comments were more a result of the Democratic Party as a whole not having a firm stance on the issue. Writer and activist Melissa Chen says, "I can't stand AOC's politics, but to be honest, this tongue-tied word salad moment at the Munich conference isn't really her fault. The truth of the matter is that her party failed to give her a proper canned response, so she was rightly afraid of answering this question because any wrong answers risk unleashing Beijing's wrath.
And in a separate panel at the conference, AOC was asked about the possibility of imposing a wealth tax on billionaires in the U.S. That's a subject she likes addressing, I think, more than foreign policy. She appeared to reiterate her support for such a tax, but she said she doesn't think she should have to become president for it to happen.
So when you run for president, are you going to impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
Well, we'll come back to that. Let's stick with the foreign policy stuff. I think chatter around this was AOC, who is going to be a presidential candidate, I believe. Foreign policy is not what she's known for. She's known for her economic views. So we're all interested to hear what she'd have to say on these subjects, not her area of strength. I don't think I saw in other remarks she made, I thought she was more impressive, how she tied in resentment against the elites and the surging nationalism and populism, and talking about how, from her perspective, now I don't agree with this at all, but from her perspective, that's about economic insecurity, and it's why we need to address the underlying economic insecurity in society to mitigate those nationalist, populist, far right, in her view, sentiments. I don't agree with her, but that was transmuting it into something she's comfortable talking about, so I thought that was skillfully done. This answer was obviously not good. I mean, what she said eventually was fine. She didn't say it in a very eloquent manner, and those ums and ahs and pauses at the beginning were not at all encouraging, and it's because there's democratic incoherence on this. I mean, we want to leave strategic ambiguity because we don't want to be in World War III with China, but we also just don't want them to invade Taiwan. So we want them to think that we would defend it militarily at all costs, even if in reality, I don't know that we are going to fight a war halfway around the world over this. So that's the ambiguity. We're just defending Taiwan is very important. China cannot do this. We oppose them. We are willing to make strong efforts to stop them, but we don't want it to come to warfare, so we will continue to negotiate, apply economic pressures if need be, and do everything we can to not have it result in World War III. But yes, Taiwan is important. It must be defended. That's what you say. And she actually did basically say that. She just didn't say it very eloquently, and it took her a while.
Well,
right?
I think she certainly could have answered the question better. When I step back and look at the entire conference, this is a place reserved for generally like diplomats, world leaders. So to see her there, yes, I agree with you. I was being sarcastic earlier. She certainly is setting herself up for a wider stage, her presidential run. And so she has to be prepared for these questions. I think when we look at the way that the U.S. under the Trump administration has behaved in recent months, from taking Maduro out of Venezuela to moving forward and saying you want to take over Greenland, and people saying the way that we treated Russia instead of Ukraine as more of our ally and treated Ukraine as, I think that all adds into encouraging places like China to go ahead and move forward in Taiwan. I mean, if the U.S. is over there doing whatever they want, acting like it's conquer and do whatever you want, then why would they not? And so that's probably an argument that you've always disagreed with, but we're egging them on to say this is acceptable behavior. And so, yes, we are in a position where that's what we do and are doing.
This is false. They are not looking at what we do and saying, oh,
you don't
because
know.
the U.S.
You don't know.
Let me finish. Because they attacked Venezuela, because they said some things about Greenland, that means we are now within our rights to take down. It's the reverse. If anything, it deters them from doing it because it shows that we're ready to go to war. We will fight to defend our interests. We are not going to sit idly by as they gobble up more land. And in fact, what we did in Venezuela was in part about interrupting resources for them. It's about defending our issues vis-a-vis China. So it does not embolden them. It puts them on notice for what we're prepared to do.
I just think it's wholly hypocritical for us to lecture about the appropriate ways to take over or not take over certain parts of the globe when we are arguably in the middle of a debate about what was...
No one cares about that. What do you mean hypocritical?
It's hypocritical for us to tell China what they shouldn't be doing. We just went into Venezuela and have no plan for moving forward.
No,
we took out a leader about
hypocritical.
drugs and crime when the main drugs aren't even coming to this country from that country. And so we're telling you, we're keeping you in jail while we don't change the leadership.
Was Nicolas Maduro the rightfully elected president of that country?
No, but...
He is the illegitimate leader of that country.
Fine.
So it is not hypocritical. It is not. I mean, you can say we shouldn't have done it. You could like. I'm fine to have the conversation, but there's not a moral equivalency or hypocrisy there if they were to what they've done in Hong Kong or if they were to take over Taiwan. No, those are places that should be sovereign and independent because they want to be independent of China, that have democracy and human rights, and China does not have democracy and human rights. So it is wrong for them to do that. The reverse is true in the U.S. case. We have democracy and human rights. Venezuela has a dictatorship run by a evil person, and we took him out. Not hypocritical, just different things are different.
Okay, and circling back to the criticisms about her lack of foreign policy experience, that's laughable. I want to know exactly who's criticizing her, because the Trump administration is full of people who lack foreign policy experience that are running the show, and MAGA.
Like Marco Rubio?
No, like Jared Kushner, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Pete Hegseth, like the president himself. Right, so we have all these standards for AOC, who's slowly building.
I don't know that you can say they lack experience. I mean, they were. I'm not. Jared Kushner's policies are not necessarily mine, but he was
military
in a
service
senior advising role for the first Trump administration, engaging in negotiation and diplomacy with world leaders all over the place. I mean, you could say maybe he didn't have experience at the beginning. I don't know how you can say that now. He's been doing that job for years. He now has the experience.
Okay, Tulsi Gabbard, explain her. Pete Hegseth came from Fox News to running the show.
She was a member of Congress, and she's traveled.
So in the same way, that's what my point is, that if you accept these people, then you need to accept AOC moving forward. Don't just be critical, trying to point out things that she hasn't learned. Well, she has 3 more years to figure out how her policies land on every single international affair.
I'm not really saying she should be disqualified on this basis. I'm saying she's new to the game of commenting on this. She has not done, I don't think, a ton of international trips or meetings with world leaders, or has not focused on those issues in terms of her congressional. It's not a knock on her. Honestly, I'm not even.
I mean, people online took that soundbite and were like, "Oh,
well, she's gotta study a little harder for the exam next time." I guess is what I would say. Obviously, she wants to do the wealth tax on the billionaires. We're seeing how that's going in California. They're all fleeing to Florida. So if we did it for the whole country, they'll all flee to
where? Canada?
I don't know. Maybe Canada, maybe, if they have a less. God, that would be a sad day if Canada had a less punitive tax and regulatory regime than the U.S. Then our loss will be their gain. That could very well happen.
I think AOC was looking quite presidential. I'm not gonna lie. I hadn't watched the clips in full. I listened and read what she said, but she was looking presidential over there. You have to admit that. You won't admit it?
I mean, if you're discounting the possibility that she becomes president, I would like to disabuse you of that notion. I think she has a very decent shot at the nomination. I think she's probably in the 3.
And if the biggest issue is the billionaire's tax for her right now, and that's the biggest issue, well, she has a lot of other things going for her. I mean, a lot of people cannot relate to being a billionaire.
We are doing an experiment in the billionaire's tax in real time right now, and it's not working out very well.
Yes, because billionaires are leaving California.
Because they don't want to pay the tax.
The rest of the people that populate California are staying.
Well, yeah, but
they're not fleeing out of the state.
This is textbook Atlas Shrugged. Driving the most productive, entrepreneurial, successful, employing, innovating people in the economy, in the society, driving them elsewhere is a recipe for complete disaster.
But no one's leaving the country. I don't think that all these companies are leaving. If AOC's president, I don't think they're leaving the country. Everyone swears they're leaving at some point when somebody becomes president.
I didn't say they're leaving if she becomes president, but if you do a giant wealth tax, they might leave.
That's what I mean. If she becomes president and implements a wealth tax, I doubt that these billionaires are moving to other countries. I just doubt it.
If she does the wealth tax, they very well might.
Okay. President Trump on Saturday lashed out at comedian Bill Maher for criticizing the president's post about China possibly making a deal with Canada.
In a lengthy Truth Social post, Trump described his 2025 dinner with Maher, writing, "He was extremely nervous, had zero confidence in himself, and to soothe his nerves immediately within seconds, asked for a vodka tonic. We had a great dinner. It was quick, easy, and he seemed to be a nice guy. And for the first show after our dinner, he was very respectful about our meeting. But with everything I have done in bringing our country back from oblivion, why wouldn't he be? But then I noticed his show started to devolve into the same old story. Very boring, anti-Trump, no mention of the perfect border, lowest crime in 125 years, the mass removal of stone-cold criminals." Well, he went on and on about the hockey statement, like what kind of a person would say such a foolish thing as this, as though I were being serious when I said it.
Bill Maher on his Friday show poked fun at Trump, referring to his recent Truth Social post about a possible deal between Canada and China, after which China will, quote, terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Meanwhile, in an interview with CNN's Alex Michelson on Saturday, Bill Maher mentioned his meeting with Trump. Let's watch.
Now, if after I had dinner with Donald Trump, I came back to this show and was seduced by that dinner and stopped tearing him a new one every week, every time I thought he did something wrong, then you would have a case. That didn't happen.
It did not happen.
Yeah, this was not Trump's best work. I mean, it was a funny post, but it screams like sour grape, like my friend betrayed me. Honestly, it makes you seem a little obsessed with what other people think about you. So I'm not sure. This doesn't paint Trump in a very flattering light. And Bill Maher, he criticizes Trump respectfully. He doesn't have TDS, and he's always attacking Democrats and the left. So I don't really think Trump's problem with him is fair. I mean, it's not. Yes, he's not a relentless booster. It's not like watching, OAN or something. But people watch it, and it's fair. I mean, Bill Maher is pretty aligned with my perspective generally, so it's not surprising I like what he has to say. And that's going to be praise for Trump, some criticism of Trump. Usually it's not personal and nasty, though he is a comedian, so he says funny things that are jokes. I don't know. Trump should have not weighed in on this one.
It's interesting.
IMO.
Because Bill Maher is getting criticized constantly by Democrats for the things that he says about Democrats.
He doesn't have TDS. He hasn't set his hair on fire.
He can point out, in the same way that we just watched the Obama interview earlier in the show, and you could point out like the pros and cons about homelessness policies coming from the Democratic Party. Like, Bill Maher is that type of person that can look at it, and he's not in politics and say, well, this seems silly. Like, this doesn't seem like something to hang your hat on for Democrats. But for President Trump, he wanted him to basically, he's saying that when I meet with you and when I'm your friend, which we know is true because of the way he treated Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's like, you can support me and be one of my most adamant supporters. But if you say something, one or two, three, whatever, however many, I don't know what his number is, and you're out of line to Trump, well, now we are enemies. And so that's not a way to behave. Like, how would Bill Maher look to go on a show every day and praise Trump? Nobody would want to watch that show. He needs to be honest. He needs to provide his own perspective. That's what makes the show interesting. If he goes on there and constantly was talking about how good he is, even though, let's say, glaring obvious reports like where the economy stands and how people feel about it, if he's neglecting to say that, oh, it's beautiful, and just, then we wouldn't watch the show anymore. The show provides nuance. It provides wide-ranging guests. And so the Trump really does look a little bit like small-minded by trying to make Bill Maher cooperate. But we know that he likes when people cooperate with him and then treats them poorly when they don't. And
someone must have sent him this clip, I think. There was some reporting from Philip Wegman at Real Clear Politics last week about Trump's media diet that he got confirmed from, maybe from Trump himself or from someone in the administration, that Trump reads the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Washington Post, and then just watches Fox all the time, and then sees clips and snippets from things people send him, other stuff. But that's mainly where he gets his media.
I think he watches it all. I think it's not a diet. I think it's a robust dinner that he's having with media. I think he stares at it all day. And I think he watches...
Well, he mostly watches Fox.
I want to also mention that he watched the Super Bowl. So all the things that he says that he hates, like the halftime show, we saw him watching on tape. So
well, he
watches it all.
Decide whether he hates it, I think.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore got into an online spat with President Trump over a sewage spill in the Potomac River.
In a Truth Social post on Monday, Trump accused Moore of gross mismanagement leading to a sewage pipe interceptor rupturing in Cabin John, Maryland in January.
That collapse released an estimated 240 million gallons into the Potomac River. Now, some researchers say this is one of the largest waste spills in U.S. history. Maryland Governor spokesperson Amar Moussa told The Hill in a statement Tuesday, quote, "The president has his facts wrong again. Since the last century, the federal government has been responsible for the Potomac Interceptor, which is the origin of the sewage leak. For the last 4 weeks, the Trump administration has failed to act, shrinking its responsibility and putting people's health at risk." Spokesperson Moussa added, quote, "Notably, the president's own EPA explicitly refused to participate in the major legislative hearing about the cleanup last Friday. Apparently, the Trump administration hadn't gotten the memo that they're actually supposed to be in charge here."
That response from Moore's spokesperson came after Trump posted another Truth Social post on Tuesday, writing, quote, "Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., who are responsible for this massive sewage spill in the Potomac River, must get to work immediately. If they can't do the job, they have to call me and ask politely to get it fixed. The federal government is not at all involved with what has taken place, but we can fix it. The two governors and the mayor of D.C. must act immediately. This is a radical left-caused environmental hazard. With all of their talk about carbon footprints and everything else, they're allowing hundreds of tons of sewage to pour into the mighty Potomac, making it much less mighty.
The pipe takes wastewater from several towns in the John F. Dulles International Airport area all the way to Washington.
It's then processed farther downstream at the Blue Plains Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant in Anacostia in Washington, D.C.
Speaking of disagreements, Trump and Moore recently sparred over Maryland governor's attendance at the National Governors Association annual White House dinner. Democratic governors Wes Moore of Maryland and Jared Polis of Colorado were not invited to the White House dinner taking place on February 21st. In a statement, Moore said, quote, "As the nation's only black governor, I can't ignore that being singled out for exclusion from this bipartisan tradition carries an added weight, whether that was the intent or not."
Meanwhile, Trump aboard Air Force One on Monday blamed Governor Wes Moore for not doing a good job. Let's listen.
The guy's just a bad governor. He's not doing a good job. Wes Moore, he's doing a terrible job. And you can see that. Well, I didn't invite those two. If the rest of them don't want to show up, that's okay. I hear they're coming, a lot of them. The White House is a great place to be. But no, I don't like the job that Wes Moore's doing. I don't like the job he's doing in the bridge. I don't like the fact that he did that horrible, with the pipes and the Potomac. And he's not doing the job.
I would be more interested in finding out what his problem is with Jared
Polis.
Polis, who's one of the Democratic governors
that you actually like
better.
Yeah, Jared Polis also is not. Yeah, he's not like in the way, because I've interviewed
like the most moderate
Mayor Johnston. Yeah, who's the mayor of Denver, who Jared Polis obviously has disagreements in the way that he's handling immigration and a bunch of things, specifically Denver. So I don't know what his problem with Jared Polis is, but whatever. Regardless of politics, clean this up. Are they crazy? This is embarrassing. I didn't know much about the story, and then I read it, and I'm like, this is absolutely disgusting. So I know people are not swimming.
I also don't know much about this story, and I don't want to because it's gross.
You should. It's not affecting drinking water yet, but also people are not swimming in a frozen. Yeah, people are not swimming in a frozen river in February, but the bacteria, according to experts, can survive in freezing temperatures and become active when the temperature rises like it will in the next few weeks for the spring. This is disgusting. There's millions of gallons of waste. It's going to be one of the biggest waste spills in our U.S. history. Almost, they said they're saying 240 million, but it could be closer to 300 million. And think about critical infrastructure failing in our nation's capital. How embarrassing does that look for our country? The same one that the president wanted to put the National Guard in because crime was such a big deal about how the city and how D.C. looks as a whole to the rest of the country and then the larger world. How does it look if trash is literally in our water, can't even have good drinking water for pets and possibly us, and they're arguing about who's more petty and whose fault this is? This is embarrassing.
Yeah, I don't really know there's a dispute over whose problem this is, but I don't care. Just fix it.
And the president saying politely, come talk to me politely.
That's fix it. Like, he didn't wait for permission to send in the guard, so why do you need, just fix it.
Politely,
I don't care.
Wes Moore to chat with you.
Just fix it. Call Wes Moore and say, you got to get it done, and if you can't get it done, then you do it, please.
But this goes back to my original.
Fix it.
My consistent, not original, my consistent statements about the president.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the pettiness can be subsided and a conversation can happen earlier, and we don't need to have the back and forth.
Well, he gets along with Muriel Bowser fine, so that's the mayor of D.C., so whatever, get it, then cut out Wes Moore, and then you two get it done.
But imagine people who were taking their dog for a walk, looking at the disgusting water, and then seeing Wes Moore tweeting, or his office,
like a
and the
river
president
of excrement.
Right, and imagine that this is what's happening. This is how it's being handled.
Ugh.
Yeah, I actually, this story grossed me out so bad. I can't even take it. And I think that I thought it was only Wes Moore that wasn't invited to the governor's dinner, and since I know now it's Jared Polis, because that was breaking news to me. I think that the race thing is a stretch. I'm not gonna
still
prematurely. If it was just him, I would say it was, because I think he is the only black governor right now.
Is white dude.
But Jared Polis is a white guy, so Trump is just a pettiness card. That's what Trump is playing, the ultimate pettiness. And again, I always request more from him. I want you to just always request more from him when we talk about these type of stories, that he needs to do a little bit better, from the auto pen picture of Biden to the screaming, come talk to me nicely for me to clean up this feces in the water. I mean, he needs to really be more presidential. Yeah, like Obama was saying earlier this week when we saw him on a podcast asking President Trump to not make it a clown show. This is that type of behavior that he's referring to.
While we're on this rather disgusting subject,
You want to go further deeper into?
So all the snow is finally melting away. There was a lot of rain over the weekend, so the snow is being gotten rid of. And when the snow subsides, you get to see all the places where people didn't pick up after their dogs. Pick up after your dogs, people. If you have dogs, don't just leave it in the street. That's disgusting. And
Do you have a dog?
Everywhere. I used to have dogs. I don't have dogs anymore. I cleaned up after my dogs always, every time. It's disgusting not to. So that should be a very significant criminal violation if you don't do that.
I'm laughing so hard because I actually did notice that as I was
disgusting.
looking around the last couple of days. I've been
looks
like,
like
why is it? I thought
New York
excess
or
amount
LA
of
or
dogs
something.
were like
Ugh.
just enjoying themselves on the street to this week. I didn't,
Everybody,
but now that you break that
everybody
down,
has
it just
dogs
happened.
because we're all childless millennials, and
I have a child, excuse
you have
me, and I'm a
child, I know,
millennial.
but
So
a lot of people in the city don't.
because you can't afford it because of the
Because
grandparents.
of the grandparents.
Yes, that's what
pilfering
Robbie's
from
stance
the-
is. But I'm able to afford my kid, and my grandma can live her life, and I am happy about both.
Good for you.
I think it's possible.
Clean up after your dogs, people. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is threatening a last resort option if he can't convince Kathy Hochul, the governor, to enact a statewide wealth tax. He's going to raise property taxes by nearly 10%. Mamdani on Tuesday unveiled his first preliminary budget proposal of $127 billion, which is a $5 billion increase from the current budget.
Here was Mamdani issuing a warning while presenting his budget over raising property taxes. Let's listen.
The first is the most sustainable and the fairest path. This is the path of ending the drain on our city and raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes. We would also be forced to raid our reserves.
Now, Mamdani's statements appeared like an ultimatum for Governor Kathy Hochul, who is running for re-election and has been blunt about her opposition to this wealth tax. Hochul recently told reporters, quote, "I'm not supportive of a property tax increase. I don't know that's necessary, but let's find out what is really necessary to close the gap."
Democratic Socialist Mamdani's proposed budget factors in a 9.5% increase in property taxes and withdrawing $980 million from the city's rainy day funds in 2026. The budget would also withdraw $229 million from the Retiree Health Benefits Trust in the next fiscal year. The final budget, after negotiations and approval by the City Council, will take effect on July 1st. They're running out of money. Liberals overspending. We can just cut services. That's what I would do. I wouldn't raise taxes at all.
Okay,
I would cut those benefits for retirees. Oof, that's the first thing to go.
You always want to. Never mind. I'm not going down this path with you about
I will
people who are older than us.
throwing Grammy off the cliff. You're right.
Yeah,
That's
you're
what we're doing,
ridiculous.
policy.
He didn't say he has to go down path 2. Let's go over and paint the picture for path 1. He wants to raise state personal income taxes by 2% on, let me finish, people making over $1 million annually. We discussed this in another segment months ago. That will only be around $20,000 for people making $1 million a year. He's suggesting that, but he needs approval from Governor Hochul, who is worried more about
I
her
hope she denies
reelection.
it. I hope she doesn't.
Let me finish. Who's worried more about her reelection than things that will be long-term sustainable changes that she can help New York out. So she's putting him in a position where Mamdani is trying to be a man of his word who campaigned on doing certain things and is saying, well, if I have to go nuclear, here's the plan B. Option 2 is the one that we just discussed in this read-in, which people don't really like because it's going to make a tight squeeze for more than just the millionaires. And so he discussed with a millionaire who said, I might be leaving New York. I saw a segment where he broke down, well, it's only going to be about $20,000 over a year. And they were like, really? We thought it was going to be, because the way that the media is making it seem is like all your money, every single coin is going
I'm gonna
away.
reach into your pocket, Lindsay.
I don't
I'm
have
gonna
pockets.
Take your wallet.
I don't have pockets.
And then I'm going to go through, this is mine. Oh, it's not that much. Here you go. I just stole a little bit of your money.
No, the
Would you like
country is
that?
doing
Would
so much for
appreciate that?
you.
Would
With our
thank me?
capitalist society is doing so much for you. Give back a little bit
Not
more
so much for me,
to
doing
take
so much
away
for the retirees.
Take away the most vulnerable people. Just need a little bit more help. You can't just give a little bit extra.
Blah blah blah. Most vulnerable people is elderly Americans who are hoarding all the wealth in our society anyway.
No, that's not what people who are literally struggling with health insurance costs right now because Republicans failed to do anything about health insurance, anything meaningful or real. You know, the president proposed some random big idea that he just threw a title on that had no context
Here's a big
and no
idea.
details. How do you plan on taking care of people
running your
who
life
paid?
is your problem, not someone else's, and not the society.
Well, you're on an island alone.
How
There's a lot of
about
people
that?
who care about the elderly in our country and care to see that they have the proper and adequate care, especially as we're in this window where a lot of people our age have young kids and then are also taking care of aging parents. And so to be in straddling both of those things, there's a lot of people who would wholly disagree
there's a lot
with
of people
you
who can't
about
afford
wanting
to
to
take
make
care of their
sure
young kids
that Medicaid,
because of the money they have to pay into Medicare and Social Security. Go ahead.
I just think that a lot of people will think that you're lacking empathy in a really serious topic in our country, and elderly people should be covered.
It's called
they paid
suicidal
into this.
empathy. I don't lack for empathy. I feel a great deal of empathy for young people who are delaying starting families, who can't afford to buy houses, who couldn't afford childcare and thus are not having children because of the amount of wealth that's being confiscated from our generation and younger people to make sure, our great grandparents can go on a bunch of cruises this year.